Okay, so we're supposed to be finishing up Module 5 in Test Out this week. It's over storage. We've already covered adding in storage and data deduplication, so we did that all in class already. And next week we'll start into Module 6, which is over Hyper-V. So this is a really good time of the semester to start looking more at PowerShell, since we've already used Hyper-V to create our virtual machines and deal with it. Y'all can read through the extra capabilities and test out on that and finish up, like I said, this week with storage. So now we kind of expand out and learn more on PowerShell. We've already used PowerShell ISE in our virtual machine by going to the Tools menu and launching PowerShell ISE. We've done some real simple scripts. I think I showed you a for each loop. So you've seen this already, where you can type at the top and click the play button and play. And so this is a good coding basic. It's on all of your Windows 10 and Windows Server stuff to create scripts with. People are using a better product now, or all the scripters and stuff. We're using Visual Studio Code. Microsoft has a product called Visual Studio that comes out with compilers for C and Java and Visual Basic, and that's what users develop applications, or a lot of people use to develop applications on Windows with. Well, the code editor is so well that they took it out and made it its own free product. It doesn't ship with compilers and stuff, but it's really great for writing JavaScript and HTML and PowerShell and any type of scripting language. So I want to show that off. Instead of using PowerShell ISE, I wanted us to install and set up Visual Studio Code. And to do that, we'll install it on our server 1. And to get Hyper-V, where you can copy things into the virtual machine, you have to be in enhanced session mode. So this last icon in my taskbar, if I put my mouse over it, it'll let me know if I can go into enhanced session mode or not. So if it says enhanced session mode, that means if you click on it, it will put you into enhanced session mode. If you put your mouse over it and it says basic session, it means it will convert it from what we need, a basic session, or enhanced, to a basic session. So if yours says basic, you're already in the right mode. You don't need to click it. But if it says enhanced, yes, we need to go ahead and click that. It'll ask us the size. I'll go ahead and click OK. It'll make me log in again. Now if I copy something from my main machine, I can right click and paste it into the virtual machine here, the server. We set these up where we have no internet, if you remember. So we can't go on the internet and download stuff. The only way we can do it is from another computer or host machine, download files and then put it on there. So did everybody get it in enhanced session mode? So you notice now when I put my mouse over it, it says basic. I don't want to click it when it says basic. I'm in the right mode if it says basic. It means I'm in enhanced.
So when we hover over it, it should say basic?
Yes, when you hover over it, it should say basic. That means you're in the correct mode for copy and paste. Now for you to get stuff into it, we need to go copy some files. And I downloaded these files off the internet. I went to Visual Studio Code, and I also went to an extension page, and I downloaded the PowerShell extension for Visual Studio Code. I put the links in Canvas under week 7 And there's the two links. We're not going to use these today because I've already got the executable and the file copied somewhere, but if you want to get these at home, you can. If you install Visual Studio Code on a computer that has internet, you don't need to download this bottom one. You can, within the program, and you can automatically download the extensions. The first time you save a file and specify what language, like PowerShell or C or Java or whatever, it'll say, hey, well, let's download this extension. It's not installed. It'll automatically give you that option, so you won't have to go and search for it. But today, we're in enhanced session mode. You're going to, not inside your server window, but down on your main screen, open up Windows Explorer. You see my Windows Explorer goes, it's not inside my virtual machine, it's on my host computer. And in the address bar, we're going to navigate to my computer. And you've already done // server 3 in our labs and stuff in the past. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to get to my computer up here. So we're going to do 2 backslashes, and my computer name is AT106 -INST. You'll hit enter. This is Advanced Technology Building. We're in room 106. And instead of putting a number on mine, I put -INST to abbreviate instructor. That's how I named my computer up here. I've got a folder shared out. So if you open up share, there's several files that we want to copy. Let's see if we can do that, or if we have to copy them to our desktop first. So I'm going to click on a file called employee2.csv. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to see a PowerShell 2019 file. I'm going to use my control key and click on that file. Have you ever done that before? You learned that maybe in hardware, software or something? Use a control key and you can click and highlight multiple files out of order. And then I'm looking down further, I see a Visual Studio Code user setup. I'm going to use my control key and highlight that one. So I have all 3 files highlighted. The employee2, the PowerShell VSIX, you may or may not see the file extension, and the VS Code user setup. It's got a little blue icon on it. So I highlighted all those files. I should be able to make sure my mouse is over a file name that I've got highlighted, like employee or PowerShell, and make sure our cursor's there and right click and copy. And I should be able to paste it and paste all of them on my desktop inside of server 1. That's how you get stuff inside of a machine that you don't have on the internet. Very useful for lab and testing purposes. While this is copying, I'm going to show you something else that sometimes happens. Microsoft has something called Smart Screen Filter. It works with Windows Defender, and it's an extra security precaution. As you download files off the internet or off of email or from another computer, sometimes when you try to launch or do something with that file, Windows won't let you, because it's intelligently trying to block. So this could be malicious, especially if you got it out in an email. I've had a lot of clients call me and they can't open up a PDF file because it won't let them. It's like, I downloaded it, it won't let me open it. If you go to, let me go to properties of a file here, this executable. Maybe it's not responding. Go. I'm going to go to properties of the file. It'll take a little bit to pop up because everybody's copying those files across. If you ever went to properties of a file, you see a little block button or a block, unblock checkbox. So if you never run into that and you've copied a file off of email, or you copied a file off the network from one computer to the next, especially if it's peer-to-peer and not a domain client server setup, A lot of times it'll have the file blocked, and you have to go uncheck that checkbox. Some clients have a button instead of a checkbox, and you got to click it, and then it'll let you open the file or install a program. I just thought I'd show you that while we were copying stuff across, since we were doing it across network, and that can be a problem at times. The biggest problem I've seen is people downloading files off their email and then not being able to launch them. But also at the doctor's office Monday, I guess it was, and they had gotten an email saying they needed to click here and renew their Office 365 subscription. It was expiring soon, so they clicked on it and paid somebody some money, and then all of a sudden their password was changed and they couldn't get in anymore, and they had to call Microsoft Tech Support and their credit card and get that charge taken off and get them to reset the password. And I don't know, hopefully they didn't get a ransomware and other stuff on there. It's like, no, you shouldn't click an email. You should maybe go to a site and log into your account and pay that way. Don't click a link. If it's a payment reminder from your credit card or your car, it's like, don't click the links in email. Go to the website directly.
It's just like the phone calls too. I'll call the company back. Okay, thank you. I'll call, and then I'll call the regular number.
Yes. Has your files been copied to your desktop successfully? Okay. So we have all 3 files. We're going to install the blue icon first. I'm going to ignore this error. Shouldn't install as administrator, it says, but it's a security thing. You shouldn't run a lot of stuff as admin. Accept the license agreement, and we should just next through everything. Shouldn't be anything else we need to change. Well, this page, right-clicking on files and being able to open them with Studio Code would probably be useful. I like to be able to right-click a file and say what program to open it with. So I'm going to go and check those 2 icons. Or the, not icon, 2 options here. I'll go ahead and install it. So this is all the rave amongst scripters now, to use this here for scripting. And they used to be about Notepad++, or Atom. Atom was another text editor for coding, and now everybody's flocked to this Visual Studio Code, which is completely separate from Microsoft Visual Studio. The name's almost identical. This one just has an extra word in the name. It has the word code at the end. Basically, you're looking at a 2 GB product versus a 50 meg product. I'm not going to launch it right now. I'm just going to go and finish, because I'm going to pin it to my taskbar and to my start menu. So it's right here at the top. It's also put it under V's, Visual Studio Code. I think last time I did this, I had to go under the V and expand it out. I'm going to right click, pin it to start, and then I'm going to right click and go to more and pin it to my taskbar. That way it's in 2 easily accessible locations. I don't put icons on my desktop if I can help it. It'll slow the computer down. It's always been an issue with Microsoft since Windows 95. You always go into people's computer and they got tons of icons all over their desktop, and their computer is always slow. Which means I'm going to get rid of this executable now, throw it into the recycle bin. This employees 2, I'm actually going to cut it, and I'm going to put it in the documents folder. just to get it off the desktop. This last file we need to install, but we need to install it before we delete it. So I'm going to launch Visual Studio Code from the icon in my taskbar or under the Start menu. What a pretty gray screen. Okay, so this comes up. It's trying to open a web page. We have no internet in these machines, so I'll just close that out. This sidebar, the little Tetris blocks, that's what it reminds me of. I was disappointed when I clicked it and didn't have a Tetris game to play. But I'm going to click on this little block here. It's for extensions to add into the system. Normally you could just look here and it'd be connected to the internet and you could browse and search for extensions and automatically install them. We cannot connect to the extension marketplace at this time. That's why we had to manually download and copy that file, that other file on our desktop. So rarely would you have to do that. So with this extensions, I'm going to hit the little ellipse. Did y'all know that 3 dots in a row was called an ellipse? You do now. So I'm going to click on the ellipse. And it gives me a drop down, and you see where it says install from VSIX? We'll click that. I'm going to click my desktop. I'm going to click the VSIX file and click install. I had to learn how to do that, how to get this installed without internet this year. I've always installed it on places that had internet.
How did you access that extension?
So the Tetris block, and then you click on the ellipse, and then click on install v6, and then you browse to the file. Once it installs, it will appear as you have the developer PowerShell module installed.
Where did you actually put that file to get it off your desktop?
What now?
Oh, it's still on your desktop.
Yeah, it's still on my desktop.
Okay.
Now that it's installed, I should be able to put it in the recycle bin and get rid of it because it's extracted and installed into Visual Studio Code. I just had it there for...
Okay. I knew you moved the one file, I just didn't know if you had moved the PowerShell one as well.
No. But now I moved it into the recycle bin after it's fully installed. That way my desktop is again a clean slate. If you click the Tetris block again, the slide out goes away. I have some little notes down here I'm just going to close. If you highlight them, you'll see the X on the right sides of them and close them out. So now we're ready to check this tool out. So I've got a welcome page here and there's a link here. Start a new file. Same thing as file, new file, but they're trying to make it just right there in your face without using a file menu. Let's go ahead and click new file. It doesn't know what we're coding in right now. It doesn't even know what the file name is supposed to be. It just has untitled 1. So we need to save this. So I'm going to go to File, Save. It gives me, I'm going to put it under Documents. I'm going to name this Import underscore users, and I'm going to change the type. Look at all the languages. Does anybody know any of these languages? Probably at least know what that is, but you may not know it. Do you see PowerShell in your list? You'll have to scroll down, click on PowerShell, and then the file name, I named mine import underscore users. And click on save. Something changed. What changed?
On the bottom, it shows your terminal is PowerShell integrated console.
So we have a PowerShell integrated console down below, and we have our script pane up above. Let me go ahead and relaunch this ISE so we can compare what's going on. Notice we're also in a dark theme. PowerShell ISE is what's known as a light theme. Coders, most coders, they find out code in a dark room, and having a white background is not good on the eyes if you're coding in a dark room somewhere in a basement. So they have dark theme that people code in. So do you see the similarities? You got this part up here which matches the coding part we did previously in ISE, and then this bottom part here, I have my PowerShell, the PS prompt, which matches the PS prompt over here. So pretty similar stuff. Now here's something. If I type the word clear, we know that's to clear the screen, right? I got a little light bulb, and I got a little number here out beside problems. That wouldn't happen in PowerShell ISE, but here in Visual Studio Code, this is why people like it. It will show bad coding techniques. I can click the light bulb, and it's going to tell me this is an alias for the full command called ClearHost. If you look under problems, it probably will describe it's not good to use aliases, especially if anybody else is going to look at this code and help maintain this code. Using aliases can cause confusion, although clear is a Microsoft developed alias. So most people should know that that meant ClearHost, but they're saying, hey, for best coding, don't use aliases, even built-in ones, you should use clear-host. You can even click the light bulb and hit the replace button. It fixes it for you without you having to type those letters. Uh-oh, it was highlighted and messed it up. Click off of it and then hit enter. So what do you think about the program so far? It's like, you just started it, Mr. Goodman. I don't know. It's scary. It's dark. It's getting close to Halloween. I'm afraid of the dark. We need light stuff.
A lot of people don't like PowerShell because of not necessarily that window there that had the white over the blue, but just the blue in general.
Mm-hmm. You can go and change the theme on here. It's like, or some key combination. It's also under, I think, preferences and color. Control K, Control T will let you change the color, and it drops this out. So there's a whole bunch of different color schemes. I'm going to keep the default, but you can change from light theme to dark themes. You can even search the internet and install other themes in there if you would like. Okay, we put out a CSV file. Did we not? I told you to move it to your documents folder. You're probably wondering what this file is. Anybody want to guess? No? So you may know what a CSV means, comma separated values. Open this file up and I see a bunch of stuff in here and I see a bunch of commas. That means values are separated by commas. So we've got a name column up here, and the first thing until it reaches the first comma belongs in the name column. Then you have something called display name. It's the second one. And the given name would be the third one. And the surname is the next one. SAM account, the login into the computer, the email address, or user principal name, employee ID, their password. Hey, we got everybody's password. And their email address, and the company name, the office, and the department they work for, and their street address, and the state, and the country, and the postal code, and even the path that they're supposed to go into in Active Directory. And this is something that would be generated from a human resources database as new employees get hired in, or here in the university out of the Vanguard portal, as students get admitted into the university. All this stuff is put it into the Vanguard portal, and the IT department, they just get a file like this out of the portal. And there's also another Unix system called Poise that they get information out of for new employees and adjuncts and stuff. So they pull these files, they're generated, whoever does the database-based coding writes code to export and make files like this. They export them, I think, every 2 to 4 hours out of the Vanguard portal, and I don't know how, I think daily out of the employee section. And then somebody runs a PowerShell script. All that's automated. It adds new students, new employees. So within about 4 hours, any new student that's admitted in normally has access to everything. And within 24 hours, new employees have access. So yes, I wanted to scare you, and there's 100 accounts in here with all of that information. So you could go one by one, add in the user accounts, and then go into the properties of the user account and fill out all the information for their phone number and departments and all of that. Does that sound like fun? Or you could write a couple of PowerShell scripts or lines and import it. Right now you're thinking, I don't know PowerShell, I think it'd be easier to just enter all 100 of them. But think of the university as we have students constantly being admitted, and you have hundreds, or at the beginning of major like fall and spring semesters, thousands of new users. You just wouldn't want to do that by hand. So we're going to do PowerShell. And you're thinking, I've got a CSV file. So I bet I could Google, because I don't know anything about CSV files in PowerShell. And the first thing that pops up is a commandlet called import-csv. Remember we already talked about verb noun. Import's a verb. CSV, that's the thing, that's the file. Pretty neat. Import CSV. There's a path. There's some other stuff like header and encoding. And there's always an example down here. So import CSV path and the name of the file. Sweet. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to type in import. Look at that. It seems like this is faster than PowerShell ISE. It gives us a list of everything that starts with IMPO. Right? I see import CSV in the list. I could just click on it. I'm going to go ahead and type it out though. But that's another reason coders like that. If they're normally bad spellers. They're really good in math, but bad spellers. So I have that problem. So I like when it prompts it and shows me how to spell stuff. Also, when I hit space, it's prompting me in a little box up here. It's telling me the switches and stuff I can add, at least some of them. I'm going to add a dash, and I'm going to put in path. I could also just hit enter since path is already highlighted, and it'll finish the spelling for me. Did y'all try that? Put in like dash PA, and as long as path is highlighted in the drop down, hit enter, it finishes it. It makes it look like you can type really fast. Well, you actually can. Autocomplete. I'm going to type in C : /. Look, it shows me all the folders on my C drive. I'm going to type in users, because that's where all the profile folders and stuff are in Windows, and put in /. Oops, I forgot the S. Users /. Notice administrator is already highlighted. I could type administrator or hit enter. It auto completes. Are y'all good? Why am I typing all of that? I'm trying to get to the documents folder. Where's the documents folder? Users, administrators, documents. That's what I'm trying to get to. That's why I'm typing all of this. So / documents / employee CSV. Any questions? Not yet. There's one extra thing we need to do. What do you normally do with information when you try to pull it into your system? You normally put it into something. What do we put it into? Do you remember? I've not done a whole lot of coding, but what do we put it into? We want to store this into RAM. What is employees with the $sign at the beginning of it? Do you remember what that is? It's called a variable. And if you're looking at the bottom of your screen and cheating, or did you remember what it was?
I missed the part somewhere behind, so I should remember that one.
You remembered that one, sweet. I noticed down here though at the bottom that it's saying, hey, variable employees is not assigned yet. So it kind of told us what that was. It's a variable. I've not done a whole lot of code yet, but I'm going to go ahead and see if this will run and not throw an error. It's giving a warning that employees is not used anywhere. Yeah, we're storing stuff in it, but we're not doing anything with it. So we won't have anything outputted to the screen, but I'm going to go ahead and execute. And there's a key combination shortcut to execute. It's Control F5. Actually, F5 by itself will work, but it'll pop out a debugging screen and take up half the screen and just not look very pretty. So if I do Control and hit F5, it will run.
What symbol do you have after the employee?
Equal. There you go, I'll zoom in a little bit. I'll maximize my window. So I did Control F5, I didn't get any errors. Let's put another line and actually just display everything inside of employees. So you can type $employees and it will dump everything that gets put into that file or into that variable. So I created a new line here and put $employees. I just want to see what's in there. So we'll do Control F5 again. Down in the bottom part, it will show me everything, all 100 users and all of their values.
So do we need to do something with the import to make it run?
So yeah, Control F5 will make it run. Yep, that's kind of a key combination to do to make it run in the output. There's not just a play button that I see anywhere. PowerShell ISE has that green play button that's really nice, but I don't see that anywhere in here. And we found out it's just a key combination. Let's see if I just use F5 by itself. If I just hit F5, it brings out this debugging window and it runs through, and it doesn't hide this after it's run. And you have to click the little beetle icon or bug icon there to hide it again. So that's why I use Control F5. It just prevents that from popping out. So we've not really done a lot of difference to what we did before with PowerShell ISE. We do have a new commandlet here, import CSV. But remember, we wrote some commandlets to get stuff out of Active Directory and put it in a variable and got an array of information. And now instead of pulling stuff from Active Directory, we're pulling it from a text file and storing it into a variable array. Once we get it into a variable array, we can deal with each user account individually and each piece of information on the individual user account individually. What type of loop did we use to pull one at a time? Because there's 100 users here. So remember what type of loop that we created? The most powerful, useful loop in PowerShell. I see notes coming up. Okay, nobody remembers writing down that.
Variable loops is all I had written down. I didn't write down the code or whatever.
So we have 4 each loop. For each opens up with opening parentheses and a closing parentheses. So for each employees, but this actually, inside the parentheses, there's always three parts inside of the parentheses for each loop. You create a new singular variable, and you use the keyword in between the singular variable and the plural variable. So employees has multiple things in it. You need to create a new variable name that is used for individual items. So you can name it item, or you can name it user, or whatever, and then the keyword in has to be in between them. So that's the structure that you do with the for each loop. It's always for each. You create a new variable name that's never been used before, such as item, and then you go in and you provide it with a variable that has a bunch of stuff in it. Of course, this employees variable has to be generated before the for each loop runs, and it needs to be generated with a bunch of stuff. In our case, 100 user accounts are in there. I know, I sit there for 5 minutes counting them. I'm just kidding, I didn't do that. And the for each loop has an opening curly bracket. And look, it auto-closed it for me. It typed the closing one. That's kind of cool. I'm going to hit enter a couple of times, or well, once. It auto-tabs me. It wants my code to look pretty. It did not put the cursor at the beginning. So that's another cool thing. I don't believe PowerShell ISE. Don't believe it auto-tabbed. It may have, but I don't think it did. Now this one's already auto-tabbing and trying to close and do some of the work for me. Okay, so we have all of this stuff about a user, their name, display name, given name, all of that information, right? I want to see if I can just print out one piece of information and make sure that this is working. I'm going to type in write host $item dot name, and I used dot name because I can get it to stop, because name is a column heading that heads the name of the user. I'll do Shift F5 again, or Control F5. Now if I scroll down to the bottom, notice all I see is names. I don't see all the other stuff. So that's a little bit of the battle. We were able to read in a text file, a comma separated value text file, and place all that information into a variable, and we're able to put that into a for each loop, and we've tested out, yes, we can get individual column headings and stuff out of there. So that's neat. So it probably means that we could run a command instead of writing stuff to the screen. We could probably write a command for creating a user and feed those values into that command, so it creates the user with all the values. And that is true. You can do that.
Did you run that with the controller and
Yes. And then I scrolled down and seen it only gave me the names. There's some pretty weird names in the list. Okay, so it's not the first time I've had to import users before. So I know there's some issues in code that has to be created to solve those issues. One of the issues is the organizational unit exist or not? Another issue is the password. Microsoft's PowerShell command for creating users can't take a clear password. It has to have the pre-encrypted password. So the password that's coming in the CSV file is plain text. So that has to be handled differently. And then something else, what if the user already exists? You shouldn't try to recreate the user if it already exists. So there are some problems that you can go through that I know that I've run through before writing and running the scripts multiple times and realizing, oh, shouldn't try to create these users and get all the errors that they already exist again, since half of them got in there the first time. The first thing I'm going to do.
So if they already exist, you could do like a if already exists.
Yes, if
this,
exists, then write, or don't do anything else. Write the code to create them. Yeah. Right now, I know that there's an issue if an organizational unit does not exist for them to be created in, and they will not be created, or if that portion is just not particularly in the CSV file, they'll put them under users, and then you manually move them later. But our CSV file specifies what organizational unit they're supposed to be placed in. And I know it's not created yet. So I want to write code to test and actually put out on the screen and tell me that, hey, this doesn't exist yet, you need to go fix it. But the first thing I want to try is just to get that code working. Up here on line 4, I'm going to create another variable. I'm going to just name it path. I'm going to name it OU path, not out path. Why did my fingers spell out? No, they did. I'm going to name it OU path. And I'm going to set that equal to, I can't do it here. Each user has a different path. Can't do it there. Actually, all the users have the same path, but in theory, they could be different for every employee. Maybe there's a specific OU that's in the HR database. When they're employed under certain departments, their organization units automatically applied, something like that. So I'm going to have to do that for each individual user, look at the path, and then test it against Active Directory. So down here under for each, I'll do the $OU path and set it equal to $item dot. Here are all of the column headings in the CSV file. And one of them just happens to be path. If I examine the CSV file directly, I find that path is the very last value in the string of everything that's comma separated. So if I look at the very last value, I see that it is an Active Directory typeful path. So I see contoso.com there, and then I see an organization unit called new. So new needs to be under contoso.com. That's what it's looking for. If it doesn't exist, the user will not be created properly, or not at all. So my little test here is just forward thinking. What if a new user is hired or a new department's created and nobody's told you, and it'd be nice to get an error on the screen that some user is being tried to put into an OU that doesn't exist. Trust me, senior management, HR, stuff like that, they'll do stuff without letting IT know when they were supposed to. So that's kind of what this is. I'm writing code to, you can consider this maybe artificial intelligence. It's going to go through and test for things and let you know if there's a problem. So I'm going to write an if statement here. If $, no I'm not, Active Directory System Interface, ADSI, inside of hard brackets. I may have to Google it, but I'm going to try to do it without Googling it. I'm going to put 2 colons. Apparently I typed something right because it did a drop down and gave me some code to type. Exist. Put quotes. It already auto put the ending quote. LDAP colon / $out path. One thing I noticed it did whenever I hit enter and made it auto spell exist, it took out my closing parentheses for my if statement. I noticed it deleted the closing when it put a parentheses for exist, but there's no closing for my if statement. So I need to close it. It accidentally cleared and deleted that. I don't know if LDAP uses // or backslashes. It's Microsoft. It's kind of weird. Microsoft likes to do things backwards. So I'm going to attempt to run it like that. I'm going to open up a curly bracket and hit enter. So notice this code will run if this is true. So it's going to run an Active Directory search interface or something like that. ADSI is an abbreviation for something like that. It's Active Directory System Interface or Search Interface or something like that. And then it's going to run some logic called, hey, does it exist? And you specify some type of value, and it's going to search Active Directory to see if that's inside of Active Directory or not. So if this comes out true, we would write host it is here. I need to round that in quotation marks. There we go. That looks better. Typically with an if statement you also need an else. What happens if it's not true? What happens if that if condition is false? And that's where you come down here and you put an else, and you open up another bracket and hit enter. I misspelled else. So easy to misspell else. It's a hard word. Else. So I'm going to write host and I'm going to put not found in all uppercase, and I'm going to put $, OU path so I know exactly what's not found. So the first time I did this, I didn't need to know or I didn't think far enough ahead that I needed to test all this stuff out. But this here is just testing, is there a place for me to actually put the users in Active Directory or not? So I'm going to Control F5, and this is going to run, and I hope it's going to put output not found. That should be your output. If you get red on your screen, it's very common you made a typo. And you look at the red carefully, and we read the red, so I'm going to look and show how to troubleshoot when you get red on your screen. So here we go on this machine. We're running this script, and it says there's a missing curly bracket. And it shows the code where an opening curly bracket exists. But it doesn't show where a closing one. So I'm looking up here, and I see that on line 8, actually right after the if, you have an extra curly bracket here instead of an opening parentheses. So that curly bracket should be a parentheses. That may be what the problem is. Yeah, the first, right after if, that should be a parentheses. And there you go. So that parentheses closes at the end right there. And then exist has an opening and closing. The hard brackets are open and closed. So we have an opening curly bracket. You're writing a host. That right there should be a closing curly bracket in front of else. Okay, and then that made the tab over. So there's the opening, and there's the closing of it. That looks good. You have an else, an opening, you have some code, and you close it. That looks good. And then this one goes with that one up there on line 6. Now do your Control F5 and see if we need to squash any more bugs. And you had good output. So no bugs to squash. So on yours, we'll look. It shouldn't be too difficult. Well, I should never say that. Don't ever say there's no dumb questions, because some student will be like, ah, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
No, just kidding. So you're getting some stuff. You get like it's here. Somehow you're getting a true condition. So let's see. There's else. The term else is not recognized as the name of a commandlet. So else, E-L-S-E, is the recognized. So let's follow the brackets. It's probably a bracket problem. So you have a for each, you have an opening parentheses and a closing parentheses. You have an opening bracket, and it's highlighting down here on number 14. That's nice. When you click on one, it highlights the closing one. So that looks good. You have the out path. You have an if, parentheses, brackets, colon, exist, open parentheses, close, close. So line 9 looks okay from here. Yes, this right host is outside of, you don't have anything between your opening and closing. So that should actually be in front of else. You just need to delete that and then put it in front of else. Yeah. Yep, and then tab that, hit tab right there one more time. Okay, and then in front of else you should hit tab once. Well, in front of the curly bracket, I should say. There you go. Now you can kind of tell, you can see where if starts, and then you can follow it straight down and it points at the closing curly bracket. And you can see you have your else statement and then your closing of your if. So everything looks good now. If you do Control F5, it probably will run, and it does. keeping track of those gets to be a nightmare when you have hundreds and or thousands of lines of code. Sometimes you have 50 lines between curly brackets too. It can be a nightmare. One thing you may have noticed, you can hit the arrows out here and it can kind of show you what the curly brackets are encompassing. That's kind of neat. It's not found. We could have write some code to actually create that organizational unit if it's not found. My thought though, being an IT person, if they're automatically going to be specifying what organizational units users are a member of, I want to know if it's not there. I want to know if a new department's all of a sudden been created, or if somebody typed it wrong in the HR database, or what's going on with things. So I'd rather have that put in like a log file somewhere, and we could actually have this outputted to a file if we wanted. Not going to get to that yet, but okay, not found. I want to get to where it's printing out it's here. So I'm going to go into Server Manager, and I'm going to launch my Active Directory users and computers from my Tools menu. And it said we don't have a new organizational unit underneath Contoso, literally spelled new with a capital N. We have S101, we have sales, we have servers, we have domain controllers, and those are all of our organizational units, but we don't have that new. And it told us new was not found. So I'm going to click Contoso, make a new organizational unit, and literally call it exactly how it's in the CSV file, new, and hit OK. So now we have a new Contoso.com organizational unit created. So if we go back to our PowerShell code and run this again, holding down Control and tapping F5, it should print out it's here to the screen. It's always good to test your if statements. Always feed them a true value and a false value. What do you think? And make sure that it gets to the right spot. Notice how I use the right host. That lets me know where it got to. I would not typically use right host. I'd want it to do something. Of course, in this case, I would either want to output the error, especially if it was not found. If it's not found, I'd probably want to write code to save it to a log file somewhere. That way I could look at the log file and see what users were messed up. I'm just going to make some changes to my CSV file. I wouldn't do it if I was you, unless you want to. I'm going to go to the very bottom because the very bottom's the last stuff that's printed out. So I'm just going to make some changes here. Instead of new, I'm going to type in bad. And this one up here, I'm going to put sales because I think I have sales. So I'm going to type in sales just to show you that sales should be okay. Bad should say it's not here. I'm going to go ahead and rerun this, and I should get only one not found. So not found, and it shows bad. It shows what wasn't found. But notice sales, since it was in Contoso, It said it's here. They would put that user under sales. So that would be another way that you could do some test on that. I'm going to put this back the way it was. So our first little test is done. What else do I need to test? I need to test if the user exists or not. So if the organizational unit exists, I need to create the user account. Or actually my next step is test does user account exist or not in .ou. So this right host here is what I'm needing to modify. I need to change it to something else. So I'm going to highlight it and just delete it. I need another if statement here. If. I'm going to open parentheses. I'm going to hit a space and open a curly bracket and hit enter. I'm going to come down here on line 11 at the end of the closing bracket, and I'm going to put an else. I'm going to open a curly bracket again and hit enter. So I have this if statement done. Something else I might do to help me separate out what if statement is what. I might put, I think, yeah, pound sign, and just put a bunch of stars. I'm going to go down here at the end of this one and put a pound sign. That's comment tag. Anything after it is not executed by PowerShell. And I'm just putting a bunch of stars there, so make a visual like, hey, there's blocking this if statement, inside of another if statement. It just helps me visually see where stuff's at. You don't have to do that, but my eyes get crossed looking at code sometimes and trying to figure out where I should put something and what's doing what, especially if you embed one if statement inside of another if statement. It can get really confusing. So that's what the green did. It just shows me, hey, there's this if statement's in between these two green dots, and the other if statement is all of that. So before we go to lunch, we have an if statement that is testing, does an organizational unit exist? If it does, we want to test, does the user exist already? If the user exists, we probably want to write out a message, user exists. If the user didn't exist, we want to create the user. I can actually, since we're going to have to save this and do this some of this another day, I can put a pound and I can write that so I can remember next class period what we're doing. So right here, let's see, so if the organization unit exists, we're testing if the user exists. If the user exists, do nothing here. Now I can also put some code up here. Test if user exists or not. That way I didn't know what kind of condition I'm wanting there. And then down here, create the user account. That's what I'm wanting to happen there. So I'm just putting these comments in there because I'm going to have to save this because we're running out of time for class and a couple of days of sleep. This is Thursday, right? Yeah, we're going to have a lot of days of sleep. And we'll come back on the next day. We'll look at this like, what are we doing? What are we supposed to be doing? And I can look at my comment tags and know real quick. I'm supposed to make some type of condition to check if a user exists or not, and then I need to write code to, well, I don't really have to write any code, do nothing, or write a message, user exists, maybe to the screen, and then the really hard part, actually create the user account. Sometimes it's good to write this stuff out in like a flowchart diagram or write it out in a bulleted list before you try to start writing this code. Like, what are all the conditions, and sometimes get into a group of coders and ask, what all conditions do we need to test for? And make a bulleted list out and then write the code around the bullets. And that makes things a lot easier. If you ever wrote an English paper and wrote an outline and then wrote your English paper off the outline, you normally did a lot better grade than just trying to sit there from just write a page paper and 3 paragraphs or whatever without making some type of outline what order you're wanting to make your thoughts on paper. So pretty neat, right? I wonder if anybody's going to try to figure out what that code's going to be before Tuesday. Or are y'all going to wait on me? That would be something like, what could I do there? How could I test if a user exists or not? Maybe I need to Google that. And how can I test Active Directory for a user account? One extra hint, we got 1 minute left. I'm going to put the SAM account name into a variable called user. It'll make it a whole lot easier to test if a user exists or not down here. Just an FYI. I'm going to go ahead and save it in case we have a power outage or a Windows update that restarts these machines or something. That way it's saved. And we will pick up on Tuesday and we'll see what code can test if a user exists or not. But that's something cool if y'all would want to try to figure out what could go here.